Hello everyone. Welcome to the new module, My First Program. So in this module, you will be writing your very first program called Hello World. And you will also get to know how Java works, what is the main method, and you will get to know the print statements in Java, as well as the escape sequences and the comments. So let's start it with my first program and how Java works. Okay. So far, until this module, you have learned the introduction to computer, introduction to programming, introduction to Java, setup and installation of JDK, IntelliJ. We also did the introduction to IntelliJ where we set the IntelliJ settings, where we created the project in IntelliJ. And we also talked about the basic command lines as well as the introduction to algorithms where you get to know what is flowchart, what is pseudocode, what is algorithm. And now finally, we are ready to start coding in Java. So the code that we are about to write today is the Hello World. This is the class that we are creating today. And after we finish creating Hello World class, after we finish writing our codes in Hello World class, this is what it will look like. In this class, you will have the package name. Okay, in the first line, you will have the package name. And then you will have the class header. After the class header, you will have method header. And of course, the method header and class headers, classes and methods, they do have their opening and closing curly braces. Okay. And then you will get to know how to use the print statement. And after each statement, there will be something that is required to give, which is known as the semicolon. And then the closing curly braces of the method and the class. This is what our Hello World class will look like. So when you create the class under a package, if I have this package module 9, my first program, then I can create the class named Hello World under this package. And as soon as I create the class Hello World under this package, I will have the package name, class header, and opening closing curly brace of the class. All I have to write by myself manually is this part, the main method and print statements, and the opening and closing curly braces of the main method. Okay, this is the part that we have to write it manually by ourselves. So what is this main method is? What is this main method is for in Java? Well, main method, it is basically something that is required for every Java application in order to run it as a Java application. Okay, therefore every Java application, they must contain a main method. When the Java interpreter executes an application, it starts by calling the main method of the class. In another word, if you don't have the main method, you cannot execute your programs. So in order to execute your programs as a Java application in a class, you need to have the main method. And this is how you will be creating your main method. Please open up your project Java programming and let's create our package and class Hello World. So under this Java programming, I have this source folder, right? First thing that I need to do is to create the package. By the way, what is a package and how should I create the package? How do we create the package? So package, it is a folder that is used for storing the Java files, right? And in order to create the package, you need to right click your source folder, select new, and then select this package. Okay. And once you select the package, it's asking you to give the name of the package. And when it comes to naming the package, what's the rule for the package names? What are the rules for the package names? So package names, they should be all in lowercase, right? And there should be no space, no special characters. So instead of space, you could use the underscore. So please name your package module 9, module 0 M09, my first program. So after each word, I want you to give underscore to make it more readable. my first program. Okay. And can I give any of those letters in uppercase for the package name? We cannot, right? Because package name should always be in lowercase. And once you hit the enter, you see package has been created. Next, we need to create a class under this package. So to create a class under this package, you need to right click the package, select new, and select Java class. And I want you to name this class as Hello World. So what are the rules for the class names in Java? So the class names, they should be in upper camel case, right? Upper camel case means by first letter of every single word should be in uppercase, starting from the first word. So Hello World, it has 2 words in it, which means first and second words, first letters needs to be in uppercase. In the word hello, H needs to be in uppercase. Rest of the characters needs to be in lowercase. And in the second word world, W needs to be in uppercase, and rest of the letters needs to be in lowercase. Okay. And of course, if you have mistyped any of those characters, of course, you could always do the refactor to rename your class. Okay, so this is Hello World class. So now in this class, we do have the package header, package name, and we have the class header, right? Next, we need to give the main method within this class. Okay, so let me minimize this project window first. How can I give the main method in this class? The main method, it must be created within the body of the class. So we are using this opening and closing curly brace of the class to define the scope of this class. If you wish to include anything within this class, they must be given within this opening and closing curly braces of the class. So I would always recommend you to give some additional lines between this opening and closing curly braces once you create the class. So once I finish creating the Hello World class, I should move the mouse over to here, click it. After this opening curly brace, I should click it and then hit the enter a couple more times. Okay, to give some additional spaces. And next, I need to create the main method. So this is the syntax of the main method. You give the public keyword, static, void, main, and then in the parentheses, you have the class called string. That's why this S is in uppercase, but remaining characters are in lowercase. And then you need to give the opening and closing brackets, which stands for array in Java, but you will learn this one later on in the course. And then after this, you need to give the name of the array, which we name it as args. But again, this variable array, those new topics, you are going to learn it in the future. For now, just try to memorize the syntax of the main method. And after this closing curly brace, then you need to give the opening and closing. After this closing parenthesis, then you need to give the opening and closing curly braces to define the scope of the main method. So let's write it together, the main method. So I will give the public keyword, all lowercase, okay? And then the static keyword, and then the void, then the method name main. And then I have this parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, I need to give the string. Okay, string is a class, that's why S needs to be in uppercase. And then I need to give the opening and closing brackets. After the opening and closing brackets, we need to specify a variable name. Variable name usually can be any name, but when it comes to the main methods, most of the time it's just named as args, A-R-G-S. And then after this closing parenthesis, you need to define the scope of this main method by using opening and closing curly braces. Okay. So this is our main method. And if I want anything to be printed on the console, I need to give the statements within this main method. Because when the interpreter executes the program, it's going to call the main method. So anything that you give in the main method gets executed, which means you need to give the code fragments within the scope of this main method. Therefore, they need to be given within this opening and closing curly braces of the main method. Therefore, I would recommend you to give some additional lines between this opening and closing curly braces of the main method as well. So as soon as you give the opening curly brace, IntelliJ will automatically gives the closing curly brace of the main method, right? Afterwards, I want you to hit the enter a couple more times so that it's going to be much more easier for you to see the body of the main method. And you see, if I have 2 opening curly braces, I should also have 2 closing curly braces in this file. Okay, number of opening and closing curly braces must be even. If one of them are missing, you see, if I have 2 opening curly braces but I only have 1 closing curly brace, if they are not even, then I will end up getting error. Here, it is going to tell us how many errors that we have, and if you click it, it will also tell you at which line you have this error. It says at line 9, it expected this closing curly brace. Okay, so after line 9, you see line 9, this closing curly brace, it is the closing curly brace of this main method. I need to give the closing curly brace of this class as well. Okay, so this is our main method. And next, in order to print anything to the console, you will need something called the print statement, which looks like this. It has system class. From system class, you call this out function, out, and then you will call println method. And then in the println method, you need to pass a string of text that you would like to print. String of text in Java needs to be given within the double quote. That's why hello world here is given in double quote. And then after this closing curly brace, then you need to use this semicolon to end the statement. Okay, so this is known as print statement. So let's give this print statement by ourselves. So first I will call system class. Since it's a class, that's why the first letter is in uppercase. And then I will use the dot operator to call this out, which stands for print stream. And then I need to call the method println. After this out, you need to give this dot to call this println method. So if I just call println method, you see, by default it's the first one, right? If I hit the enter, you see it will automatically gives me this semicolon. Okay? If this semicolon was not given, then you would end up getting this compile error. Okay? So make sure that this semicolon is given after every single statement in order to end this statement. Okay? And I want this print statement to print me hello world to the console. So if I want anything, any string of text to be displayed on the console, I need to use double quote to give it in Java. If I don't use the double quote, if I just type the string of text myself, you see, it would give me an error. That's why every time if you need to give any string of text, any text that you need to display on console, then inside the print statement, you need to use this double quote to give those string of text. So within this double quote, I can include this string of text hello world. Okay. And now, you see, after this main method, we do have this run button that is available, right? So meaning that this class now is runnable. If I did not have this main method, or if I mistype anything in this main method, then I wouldn't have this run button. To make sure that this class is runnable, we need to have the correct main method first. Okay. And then in order to make sure that this hello world will be printed on the console, we need to have the print statement. This is the print statement. And then in the print statement, we need to give the string of text hello world. And once you run it, it is going to print hello world on the console. Okay, so hello world is now printed on the console. And next step, whenever you are writing the codes, you need to pay close attention to the case sensitivity. Okay, so each of those keywords that we are using so far, public, class, all those keywords are in lowercase. But if you try to give this public and class those keywords in uppercase, for example, if I try to give this public keyword in uppercase and class keyword in uppercase as well, then I will get this error. Okay. So make sure that pay close attention to case sensitivity. And also, when you are using this print statement, the out here is in lowercase. Print statements, except for system class, rest of the keywords are all in lowercase. Okay. And try to use the IntelliJ's auto completion function in order to avoid getting those types of errors. So we also, in the IntelliJ, we also have a shortcut for the main method and print statements as well. It is also a better idea to use the shortcuts of the IntelliJ to create this main method and print statement, just in case if you need it. Okay. So for example, if I have to rewrite this program that prints me hello world on console, so to write the main method, all I have to do is to write main and then hit the enter. IntelliJ is going to show me the available shortcut for the main method. This is how you create the main method. Just hit the enter a couple more times in order to include the additional space. And then inside the main method's body, you can now you can give the print statement, and the shortcut for the print statement is SOUT. You type SOUT and then hit the enter key. Then it will give you the print statement. And then you need to give the string of text that you want to print on the console, which is hello world. Okay. And now if I run it, hello world is printed on the console. Please pay close attention to the case sensitivity. And another thing is the readability. Next thing that you need to pay attention to is readability. Coding is complex enough already, okay? So if you do not give enough space and indentation for every single blocks, every single lines of codes, then it's hard for you to read the code as well. For example, you see if your code looks like this, then it's definitely difficult for you to read. So if I miss those spaces, indentations, then you say it is much more difficult for me to read, right? So what can I do in that case? Sometimes when I forget to give those spaces and indentations by myself. At that time, you should be using the shortcut of the IntelliJ to reformat your code. When you use the shortcut of the IntelliJ to reformat the code, it is automatically going to give those spaces and indentations that are needed. And here is the shortcut for the reformatting the codes in IntelliJ. For the Windows users, it is Control Alt and L. For the Mac users, it is the Command Option and L. So if my code looks like this, I can use the shortcut of the IntelliJ to reformat my code. Okay, and then when I run it, you see, now I have this hello world printed on the console. And some of the common issues that the student face. If there's an error in the main method, if the syntax that you gave is wrong, if any of the characters that you give is wrong, then you will not be able to run your program. Okay, just like the example that we gave earlier, if this main method was given in uppercase, this letter main is given uppercase, then I don't have this run button. Okay. And if I change anything else, I probably will not see this run button either. So therefore, it's better to stick to the shortcut of the IntelliJ to create the main method. Okay. Every time if you want to create the main method in a class, just use the shortcut of IntelliJ to create the main method. And how to see the error details whenever we face some errors in our codes. So whenever you face errors in your codes, here you do have the errors. Number of errors will be displayed here on the top right corner. On the top right corner of the editor. Okay. So it could be due to the missing semicolon, or it could be due to the missing closing curly brace, right? So every time whenever there's an error due to the syntax, on the top right corner, we do have the number of errors that will be displayed here. Okay. In the highlight, it's going to highlight the number of errors. And if you click it, it will also tell you in which lines the error has occurred. So the error has occurred at line 6 because the semicolon was expected. So I will give the semicolon. And the error also occurred at line 9 because one more closing curly brace was expected. So I will give closing curly brace here. And after you fix the error, you should also do the shortcut to reformat your codes to make it more readable. Okay. And yes, in the IntelliJ window, you are able to read where you need to go to fix the error. If you don't fix the error, you will not be able to run your codes in the IntelliJ. And here is how Java works. So we just finished writing our Hello World class, right? So we do have this Java file, which contains our source code. So this source code, it cannot be read by the computer, by the machine directly, right? The CPU CPU of the computer, it can only process what? the binary codes. Okay, so in order to get the binary codes out, the source code, first of all, it needs to be converted to byte codes. Okay, so compiler, it is going to translate the source code into the byte code, and then the byte code will be when we run the byte code, we are going to get the machine code, which is in the binary system. Okay, and once we have the binary code, then the CPU will be able to process it and then to give us the output. By the way, what does CPU stands for? It stands for Central Processing Unit. Okay, and it can only process the binary codes. Well, so once you have the binary codes, which are the codes that build with zeros and ones, and then we are able to process the code and get the output at the end. Okay, so the way IntelliJ working is also the same. So we have our Java source code, right? And after we run our Java source code, the class file will be created under the out directory. Okay, so far you do not see this out directory here because before in our previous settings, we unselected this show excluded files. Okay, now if you select this show excluded files, so you see after you run this Java file, you do have this out folder, and inside the out folder we do have this class file named hello world. For every single Java file, we will get the class file after we run that Java file. This class file, it will contain the byte code, and then later on it will be translated to the binary codes. And then once it's translated to binary codes, CPU will be able to process it to give us the output. So this is how Java works. But this out and idea folder, I do not need to touch them since it's done automatically every single time in IntelliJ. Plus, we are not going to create any files or folders under those idea and out folders. So it's the best if we unselect this show exclude files. It's the best if we don't touch this out and that idea, those folders at all. Thank you so much, everyone. See you all in the next video.